Hey guys, it's Dr. May. So I'm here today to talk about posture. So to start off, I'm balancing this book on my head as a traditional posture exercise. It's one of the somatic resources we can use to help improve our recovery. All right, so that's what this lesson is going to be all about. I'm just going to take this down because it's probably going to fall at some point anyway. All right, so let's get this screen share going. The computer was really slow today, so I hope it's not going to be too slow for us. Booting up the big screen. All right, I think it's on its way. Here we go. Maybe. There we go. Okay, so it's called core alignment, meaning our postural alignment, working with posture, okay? And this is a part of our resources section, building resources. Okay, so here's our intro. So basically, this is all about the mind-body connection, as often it is in sensory motor psychotherapy. So the way we feel is affected by our posture, and our posture impacts the way we feel. It's like a double arrow. So if you think about it, when there's times when you're standing up straighter, chances are that correlates to feeling a little bit more confident, a little bit better, a little bit more happier. But at times when you feel like you're sinking down, chances are that corresponds to feeling low self-esteem, shame, feeling depressed. So your emotions and posture are very closely connected, okay? And if we grew up in an environment where we experienced trauma or attachment problems, meaning difficulties with our caregivers, then we might have adapted a posture that was adaptive for that particular environment and helped us to get by. And I'm going to give you some examples of that in the current slides. Okay, so if you have a chronically hunched over posture or a chronically stiff posture, it might be very connected to the way you were brought up. All right, and we're going to discuss how that goes. Another thing about posture is, in addition to reflecting your own mood, it communicates to other people. So if you think about it, when you look at somebody who's standing up straight, it gives you a certain impression. And when you look at somebody who's kind of hunched over, it gives you a certain impression. And you can make all kinds of assumptions about people based on the way that they're standing. And people are doing the same for you. And so being more aware of what our posture is can give us a better sense of like, well, do I really want to convey those kinds of messages to people? What does my posture convey? And am I happy with that? Or do I want to change that now that I'm at a different point in my life and my old posture habits don't make sense anymore? All right, so that's what this presentation is really all about. Okay, so we're going to review some different types of posture. I'm just trying to move this window here, and how it might have developed, and what it conveys and how it reflects our feelings and so forth. Okay, so let's look at the rigid posture first. So this woman is standing in a rigid posture. Okay, so her head and shoulders are back. Her back is kind of stiff, upright and stiff. Her knees are locked, and overall her muscles are very tense. So that kind of, if you look at her, just think about what associations you have just right off the bat. Just think about it. What kind of impression is she giving off? Or what do you think she might be thinking or feeling? Or how might she feel about herself? Or how might she be feeling in a social situation if she's standing that way? Okay, so let's go back though to childhood origins. So if this is your common posture, and it might be, it could be that in your household, it wasn't okay to be vulnerable. It wasn't okay to have vulnerable emotions such as shame or anxiety or not being perfect. And so you adapted by armoring up, tightening up, straightening up, keeping a stiff upper lip. And that was what helped you get by in your family. Okay, so the idea was, I am protecting myself by being strong and not being weak. Don't show any weakness. That might have been the message. Okay, so it could also, even keeping this posture now, help you to hold back emotions, kind of like the expression again, like keeping a stiff upper lip, right? It could reflect a certain kind of hypervigilance, sort of like if you think about a guard and someone's being on guard at a palace, he's probably standing real straight up and stiff like this. So when we're on guard in our life, we would probably stand like that as well. And it also keeps us in a certain readiness position. So if you're always afraid that someone might be piercing your armor or about to hurt you in some way, emotionally or physically, it keeps you ready to pounce, ready to fight, if you're kind of alert and upright like that. Okay. And it might be like so customary for you to stand in this rigid manner or even sit in this rigid manner that you're almost like uncomfortable and afraid of loosening up and relaxing. So even if you were aligned and upright, but you were less stiff, it might feel a little strange, because you've gotten so used to this pattern of keeping safe by being rigid and being big and tough. Okay. All right. So what kind of thoughts are reflected by this? All right. So that kind of rigid posture might reflect thoughts such as, I have to be on guard and closed. Okay. For those of you who watch my radically open DBT videos, this would be like something you'd want to target in radically open DBT. If this is keeping you closed by standing this way and all the emotional and thought things that come with it, part of the process is to relax your posture. So it gives you more possibility of being socially connected and so forth. All right. You might also believe things such, I can't show my needs, or I'll be attacked if I'm vulnerable, because that might have been your earlier experience. And it also could keep your thoughts rigid. So just like your body is rigid, it could keep your thinking more rigid and inflexible. Okay. And therefore, we might read a little radically open DBT to keep our thoughts a little bit more flexible, right? Okay. So interpersonally, so think about how this could convey something to others. So people might see that as kind of puffed up with pride or arrogant, or you're trying to be intimidating. So people who want to intimidate people stand up straight and look down their nose at people and walk right up to them. Okay. And it gives them a certain message of dominance, like you're not going to mess with me. People might see it as adversarial or inflexible, and it can make it harder to get close to somebody emotionally when you're that rigid, right? You need to kind of soften into somebody to connect. It's very hard when you're like that. Okay. So it could prevent certain progress with intimacy and with emotions and with loosening up your thoughts and being more flexible if you maintain this kind of a posture. All right. Okay. So let's go to the opposite of this. So this is a collapse posture. So let's look at the picture here and some of the things that we can notice. So for this woman, her shoulders are rounded, her upper back is kind of bowed, her body's curled inward, her head is forward, her spine is bent forward, slumped, or flexed. Okay, so just take a moment and look at that picture and just think about what associations you have. So does that person remind you of yourself or anyone you know? What kind of things do you think she's thinking and feeling? And how do you think she feels about herself? And what kind of message is she conveying to other people? If you saw somebody sitting like that, would you say that she's ready for social interaction or she just wants to be left alone? Like it really does convey a certain message to others. Okay, but let's look at, the stuff that I have on the right here. So we'll start with childhood origins. All right, so if you had a childhood where people were hurtful to you, and whether intimidating emotionally or physically, it might have been your defense to keep yourself small and invisible, to protect yourself. And one way to keep yourself small is to literally hunch over and make yourself small. And it might feel safer to kind of hunch over and protect your inner organs by curling forward, than to keep yourself open and vulnerable to attack. So that might have been part of why this posture started to happen for you. And that may be why you kept it going forward in your life, because survival functions last, right? Because they helped. Okay. Another possibility too is that, let's say we're looking at that woman there, and another interpretation is, well, maybe she's having a really hard day and she needs help. Maybe I should go over and help her. Maybe she needs some cheering up. Maybe she needs some more love. And so that posture helped her to get the kind of love and caring that she wanted or she needed. And so it also helped in that regard. And I'm not trying to say this in a pejorative manner in any way, because we all need love. But sometimes, it's what we do to adapt and to try to get the love that we need. Okay. All right. So Emotion survival function. I kind of covered this a little bit already, but let's just go over it in more detail. So your safety or well-being was better assured by patterns of compliance, submission, or invisibility. So there's something they call appease and please. And it's like, if I just keep you happy, and if I just do what you want, and I just be who you want me to be and not ruffle any feathers, I'm more likely to be safe. And so that posture goes along with that mindset. Okay, and it can help you survive a really unpredictable, rageful parent, or somebody who's critical, or somebody who's going to come in and make a ruckus. And just being small and staying out of the way is the best way to handle it. Okay, it might lead you to feel certain ways, such as depressed, or even fragmented and unreal, a little dissociated, kind of checked out. Okay, if you're not really looking at the world because you're curled over, it kind of disconnects you from what's going on around you, and that could be adaptive sometimes too. Sometimes it's too hard to look up and see what's happening or who's here, okay? So slang that is associated with a posture like this could be like someone who's spineless or someone who has no backbone, okay? And that kind of expression means like you don't have courage, you're shameful. Maybe you're low self-esteem. You don't have any confidence. You don't, because if you had a strong spine, it means you're confident, like the other picture. But if you have low confidence, you would just slump over as if you had no spine. Okay, or a lack of assertiveness. Like the woman in the picture doesn't look very assertive, because assertive requires a certain upright posture, eye contact, you know, firm tone of voice, right? But she doesn't have that in this picture based on what we're seeing. Okay, thoughts associated with this. I should not show myself or be visible, and I must be compliant and do what others want, okay? And of course, interpersonal functions, it could communicate to others that you're detached, you're frightened, insecure, or compliant. Certainly detached, she's not making eye contact. She looks like she's in her own world. Maybe she's anxious. She's kind of in her own thoughts. Insecure because she's kind of curled up protecting herself. And compliant, like, yes, I'm just going to bow down and do what you say. Okay, so all these things go along with this posture. All right, so now this is what we're hopefully going to strive for. So this is an aligned posture. So she's upright, but she's not overly rigid, okay? Because originally the rigid posture, she's also upright, but see how stiff she is? And aligned posture is you're standing straight, but there's more of like a relaxed stance. So you're aligned, but there's not too much muscular tightness going on, okay? Everything is stacked upon everything else. So your legs and feet are under your body. Your torso is stacked on your pelvis. Your chest rests above, you know, your torso. Your chin is fairly level, you know, so everything stacks and is upright. It feels like something's pulling you from the top, so you're like lifted. So like when we talked about in grounding in the previous video, there was a groundedness in your feet and also a lift at the top. So this aligned posture focuses mostly on that lift, okay? And it's not a stiff lift, it's like a relaxed lift, like if someone's pulling a string at the top of your head. So the head reaches the sky and is centered over your shoulders. Your shoulders are open, you know, so you're opening your heart to the world, to others, okay? Stability and flexibility in the core, right? And don't we also want to feel that way too, besides for the fact that that's describing the posture, okay? Yeah, so, and body's in balance with gravity, okay? So all the pieces come together and they're all balancing with gravity. All right, so some more information about the aligned posture. So I wanted to give you a second picture just to kind of get it straight in your mind a little too, okay, get it clear. So if you're lucky enough and you naturally stand this way, good for you, okay? So childhood origins. So if you had a supportive environment, a secure attachment, good boundaries with your parents or caregivers, all those things support an aligned posture. Okay, so when you feel protected and connected, that goes along with an aligned posture, right? So I don't have to go out of my way to protect myself by muscling up or straightening up too much or by curling over. I could feel adequately protected just standing aligned like this, okay? And I also am opening myself to connecting with other people. I'm not hiding and I'm not stiffing against people. So it supports that secure attachment of protected and connected, okay? So emotional survival function. So when you stand this way, it can help keep us stabilized emotionally and physically. So you're physically stable, like you're comfortable standing, you have a solid stance, but you're also emotionally stable when you stand this way. It's a posture that supports regulating hyperarousal, like being too revved up, or hypoarousal, being too slowed down. It's kind of that middle ground, that window of tolerance posture, all right? If you started out hunched over and then you aligned yourself, it could help you lift your depression, or if you're too rigid and anxious and then you relax it out, it could help you relieve your anxiety. Okay, so it helps you to feel poised, confident, solid yet flexible. It supports an internal locus of control, meaning that I have some control and power of this situation in a positive manner, that I can make certain choices and decisions that are in my best interest as well as respectful to others. And it supports the feeling that I can be secure and at home in myself, right? Super important. So if these are things that you're always wishing for, it's important to work with your posture to help create these states, because it's very hard to create these states when your posture's too hunched over or too upright and rigid. Okay, it's kind of like a contradiction of mind and body. And so like the emotional stuff is never going to fall in line. Okay. All right. So some thoughts that go along with this aligned posture. I'm okay and you're okay, like the classic book says. And I have a right to be here, right? You look at that woman, she looks like, yeah, I have a right to be here. I don't have to hide. I don't have to go out of my way to prove myself. I'm just comfortable here and I'm standing my ground. Okay. All right. And interpersonal functions. So creates possibility for intimacy because she's open to others, open to emotional connection. And, others could see her as confident, as focused, receptive, open, feeling okay about herself. So all those things could kind of be things that other people pick up on. All right. So I'm not sure if you've already kind of been noticing some of that yourself, just looking at these pictures from here and here. But, it has a certain thing that it conveys. Probably should have asked you before I gave you the answers, but I'm sorry, I forgot for this one. Okay, so now we have some exercises, okay? So this is gonna increase our mindfulness and awareness of our own posture, and I'm gonna give you some tips for improving your posture as well. Okay, so this is kind of an interesting exercise. It's kind of like you're gonna look at the pictures in this slide and the following slide. I couldn't fit all the pictures and the questions, so I broke it into 2 slides. So look at each picture and take a moment to imitate each one. Like try to stand the way the person is standing in the picture to the best of your ability. So like just stand there for a little bit and notice like how it's impacting your building blocks, so to speak. So as you stand in each posture, notice how does your body feel? Okay, so just tune into physical sensations, use your sensation vocabulary. What emotions are you experiencing? So use your emotion vocabulary for that. Think of if I were standing this way and someone saw me, how would they react to me? What would they think? What kind of assumptions might they make about me? And like related to that, what message might be conveyed by this posture? So does this posture feel familiar or remind you of anything? So some postures might feel like, yeah, damn, that's how I usually stand. Woo, okay. Or other times it might remind you of something else in your life or a certain situation you had or someone you know. So just take note of any associations you might have with each particular posture. All right. So it's the same questions on this slide, okay, but it's just 3 more postures to try. All right. So as you can notice, number 6 is an aligned posture. So you actually do get to try the aligned in addition to some of the ones that are less aligned. Okay, so after you try all of them and you kind of explore your answers to the different questions, think about like, well, what did I learn about my own posture today after doing these things? Because hopefully it's helping you to be more mindful of your own posture. And also think of your other people that you know, like what might it tell me about others? Right now, all of a sudden, you might have a little more awareness about other people and have a better read on what they're going through based on their posture. Okay, could help you validate yourself and others. All right, so here's a way to kind of be mindful of our own posture, but by going piece by piece and using certain descriptive words to help us really zone in on how we're standing. Okay, so let's take it piece by piece. All right, and they suggest that You could do this by standing in a mirror if you have a full-length mirror, or maybe having someone take a picture of you from the front and from the side. Or if you want to look at yourself, you can look at yourself from the front and the side. But the idea is to try to stand the way you normally stand. Okay. I know it's tempting, like, to look at yourself and go, oh, I don't like the way I'm standing. Okay, let me get really in line. Okay, so don't cheat. All right. Just it might be a little hard to kind of really look at yourself and your posture, but don't judge it. Just notice it for what it is, and know that we can always continue to work on it. Okay, so there's acceptance and there's change, as they say in DBT. Okay, so after you take care of that first piece, all right, so we're going to notice, what's my head doing? Is my head forward? Is it erect? Or is it kind of tilted to one side? All right, or is there any other descriptors about your head position that you would like to add? Then specifically focus on your chin. So is your chin kind of tilted up, like you're kind of like that? Or is it tilted downward, which happens when you curl over? Or is it kind of forward because you're leaning forward? All right, or is it in some other kind of position? So notice that as well. Then focus on your shoulders. So are your shoulders rounded forward? Are they hiked up? Are they held back? Are they level? Or are they somehow uneven, where you're kind of leaning to one side and one's a little higher than the other? All right, then look at your belly. I know not everyone loves to look at their stomach in the mirror, but don't worry, don't judge, okay? It's just an exercise, okay? Is my abdomen protruding? Not that, I don't mean are you fat, okay? I just mean it's like, is your back arched forward so that your belly is sticking out too much? Kind of like in the picture, the second one here, okay? He's not fat, but his belly is protruding because of the way he's standing, all right? All right, so I hope that makes sense. Or is your abdomen flat because you're standing more upright, okay? And it doesn't mean like, well, I'm not skinny, so my abdomen is not flat. Again, is it just like aligned with your body, all right? Okay, so then we're gonna look at the lower back, all right? So do I have a curved lower back, or a flat lower back, or a collapsed spine and chest, or a stiff and rigid spine, or is my pelvis tilted under? Kind of like a tail between the legs thing. So if you look at some of these pictures, you can see like tail under, you could see stiff and rigid back, you could see kind of curled back. So you can see the back is all different ways depending on the pictures we're looking at, okay? So just kind of like notice how your back is in those different areas. Okay, then knees, okay? Are your knees locked, which is a sign that you're very stiff, okay? Or are they kind of a little bit more flexible, a little bit more loose, all right? A lot of times in sports, they always say, relax your knees, right? Ever try surfing or snowboarding or rollerblading? It's important not to lock your knees, all right? A lot of times it's that kind of flexibility that kind of keeps you, you know, more flexible with the situation, all right? Are your knees or feet turned out, or are they turned in? Are your knees bent, or are your knees straight, okay? All right, does your posture demonstrate 3 curves? So let's look at the picture here with the green dotted spine. So there's one curve for your neck, there's another curve for your upper back, and there's a curve for your lower back. So those are the 3 curves that they're talking about. So as you can see here, not everybody has 3 curves. Some of them are too stiff in some spots, and some of them are kind of, you know, a little bit different, right? So you got to see for yourself. Okay, do I have the 3 curves that signify an aligned posture? Okay, and then look at the one on the right with the green dots showing the alignment from head to toe. So that's a sign that each thing is stacked on top of the other. All right, so all your shoulders, ears, hips, and ankles are in line. Okay, and if that's not the case, don't worry about it. Okay, next. All right, so after you take note of your own posture, after you write down these different things, okay, and note what it actually is, I want you to do an exaggerated version of that, okay? So if you notice that your shoulders are hunched, like hunch them a little bit more. If you notice your chest is collapsed, collapse it a little bit more. If you notice your shoulders are hiked up to your ears, hike them up a little bit more, okay? So exaggerate it just so that the emotional impact of it is intensified, okay? So do that and hold that posture for a little while, okay, and tune in. And as you tune in, just think, how is my body feeling as I stand this way? Okay, so do a body scan and notice how the different parts of your body are feeling. Notice what emotions seem to be related to your posture. How are you feeling as you stand this way? What impulses do you experience? Okay, it's like, what do you feel like doing? Even if you're not going to actually do it, just what's the emotion that you want to do? What message does your posture convey to you about yourself? When I stand this way, what does it say about me? Does it say, I'm comfortable with myself, I'm insecure, there's something wrong with me, I'm tough, I'm confident? What does it say? And what message might it convey to others? And sometimes, those might be the same message, or sometimes it might be a different message, okay? Are the messages conveyed by your postures ones you want to communicate? All right, is that how I want people to see me? And just be honest, okay? And if not, what postural changes might help to communicate a different message? Okay, so we're observing the posture we have and starting to think about how can we tweak it a little bit so that I feel and convey things that I want to, okay? That's more in line with who I want to be and how my current life is going. Okay, so here are some exercises that can help you develop a more aligned posture, all right? So the first one is a shoulder roll, okay? So we want to keep the shoulders a little looser, so that's why we're rolling them. We don't want them to get stuck in the usual position or some other false, exaggerated position. So just start by like shrugging your shoulders up to your ears and then press them back like so that your shoulder blades are together and slide them down your back. And just do this a few times and notice that kind of spot where it feels like this is a good spot for me. This feels a little bit more upright and aligned, but relaxed. Okay, so but you have to keep your shoulders in every position to know where the one is that you want to stop. So just kind of try that a little bit and see how that feels. Okay, so then lengthening your core standing. All right, because we could do posture sitting and standing. So we're going to start standing. All right. So kind of try to stand like the woman in the picture where your feet are kind of aligned under your shoulders, about shoulder width apart, pointed forward. So feet not in or out, just kind of around straight. Chin parallel to the floor. Imagine that lifting from the crown of your head, as I talked about before, with your feet firmly planted on the ground. So you have the roots and the branches like this, like a tree. All right. And just experiment with slowly extending your crown upward and pushing downward with your feet, okay? And you could do this just a tiny bit at a time if you want to, because it could feel very unsettling, especially if you're so used to curling up for protection. So opening that up could like bring up some anxiety, especially at first. So just be gentle with yourself. Take your time, see how it feels, and if you're uncomfortable, you could always put it back, all right? But just experiment slowly, titrating. All right, how's this doing for me? What's that like? How does that impact my building blocks? All right, and we could also do this sitting, okay? So like the guy in the picture here, you could sit with your feet on the floor, kind of like in the grounding exercise. And we're, in addition to pressing our feet into the floor, this time we're also gonna pull upward with the crown of our head. So we're gonna focus on the lifting as well as just the grounding with our feet, okay? And just experiment with how that feels, all right? So you want to kind of titrate between your familiar posture and the new, more aligned posture. So spend a little time in each one and you can go back and forth. And then notice for each one how they each impact your building blocks. So how does the aligned posture affect your body sensations, the movements you make or want to make, your emotions, your thoughts, okay, for example. And when you're in your familiar posture, how is that different? So you can do a little compare and contrast. All right, so this one it looks a little more scientific, doesn't it? This is what they call a TVA muscle, okay? So it stands for transverse abdominal muscle, but for short, they call it the TVA muscle. So it's kind of depicted in the drawings on the top. It's sort of like this thin sheath of a muscle that kind of wraps around your core, all right? And for this one, in order to sense it, you can't muscle it. You actually have to kind of like relax a little bit and just kind of slowly kind of feel that feeling that goes like this as you breathe. So in addition to, they often talk about our chest rising and falling and our diaphragm and our belly coming out. This one's a little different. This one, it kind of goes like this. Like you take, in breath and out breath, and it expands this way, but it's very subtle. You have to kind of like just notice it slowly, like get still and just notice that little expansion and contraction. All right. One way to do this is to lie down on your back, kind of like the woman in the picture, and just put your hands on your stomach and just gently breathe. Okay, so hands just below your navel. And as you exhale, so your stomach's going to go down, you're going to gently feel like a little hollowed out feeling. Okay, so you're going to feel like, a little of this going on. So just subtle, and that's your TVA. All right, so it feels like it's hugging your spine and moving inward and upward. Okay, so it's just a gentle contraction. So that's how you just even know that it's there. Okay, but what we could do in order to have aligned posture, it's important to have a strengthened TVA. So to have posture, not by muscling it with your really tight muscles and creating tension, but by strengthening that muscle that wraps around and getting a kind of relaxed core alignment from there. Okay, so one thing you can do is sit or stand in aligned posture, kind of relax your body, put your hand on your belly again. So as you exhale, just notice your belly coming toward your spine, and imagine your TVA hugging your spine and maybe pulling it a little upward, and then hold it, and then inhale. Sorry, I forgot where we were. We exhaled, then we inhale, and just repeat that, and just notice that feeling and how that is with your TVA. Okay, so then afterwards, just kind of notice what came up for you. Think of how your postural changes were involved, were impacted by some of these exercises, and what's been like to try these things. But don't worry, like we're not expecting perfect posture right away. That should not be a realistic expectation, okay? It's just to start to make you a little more aware, and maybe at certain times you might choose to try to be a little more aligned in order to support some of the positive emotions and feelings about yourself and messages to others that you're hoping to convey, okay? So it was just a kind of a project over time that we could continue to address. Okay, so stop the share. Oh, damn, this thing is so slow. Okay, sorry. I got a new computer, but I didn't set it up yet. This one's like crawling. Okay, I'm sorry. So anyway, I hope this was somewhat beneficial to you with these postural exercises. And I hope you'll give them a try, because I really do feel that, working on this could help us feel a little bit better with ourselves and support some of the things we really want to do in our life. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. And I'll see you soon on the next one. Okay, bye.